Welcome to the Speak with People podcast, where we believe that healthy communication is the key to unlocking your leadership potential. We are the go-to resource for leaders looking to greatly improve their communication skills, whether it's one-on-one interactions, team settings, public speaking, or digital communication. By improving these skills, leaders can create stronger connections and drive positive change within their organizations. Each and every episode, we sit down with experts from various fields from around the world, just like you're grabbing a coffee with them, to dive into real practical conversations. Our goal is to help you transform your communication skills so you can lead more effectively, build stronger relationships, and make a lasting impact. So go grab your favorite drink, settle in, and let's learn together. Well, have you ever been paralyzed by the thought of speaking in front of a crowd? The moment has come, maybe even in a team meeting, your boss looks over at you and says, "Hey, can you stand up, give an update on the project?" And then all of a sudden, fear just cripples you. Maybe you're getting ready to speak at a regional conference and the nerves are just out of control. Or maybe you're just wondering how some people, some leaders turn their speaking into something a little bit more lucrative, and they start speaking more and more and they start earning money for it. Well, that's what we're talking about today on the Speak with People podcast. I am so excited that you're joining us today. And I've been looking forward to this interview for a long time. Our guest today is a phenomenal communicator. He is an incredible business leader, has a brand new book out. Can't wait for him to tell us more about that. And I really think that every one of our listeners needs to go to Amazon or wherever you buy books today and buy it, because it's the title that I wish I would have thought of to write a book. It's that good. I cannot wait to dive into it. Ryan Vett is our guest. Thank you so much for being on the Speak with People podcast.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited for our conversation.
This is exciting. So before we hop in, tell us a little bit more about your story. What's got you to this place? Where are you from? Who are you? What do you do? All those different kind of things.
Yeah, I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago, which is where I got my start. I wheeled down my little card table down to the street corner there and sold lemonade. And I say that semi-jokingly, but it really is what started my entrepreneurial journey and led, without getting into all the details, led to building as a teenager a multinational marketing firm. Then from there, transitioned into venture capital backed startups, primarily software, enterprise software, and did that for many many years, and all interspersed throughout there was speaking, whether that was one-on-one with clients, which is extremely important in communication, to being in front of a boardroom, in front of VCs pitching, or now what I spend most of my time doing on stages in front of business leaders and business owners.
Oh my goodness. I love that. Uh, Maybe our listeners will remember the episode with Dr. Jennifer Knowles. She told the story of her kids that set up a lemonade stand, and the neighbors had a fit. The police told them to take it down. So her and her family went and did the whole deal, got the laws rewritten in the state of
Wow.
Colorado, and now kids can sell lemonade. So it's an amazing
Wow.
story. You walked down that path. Just incredible that you did that. Where do you think that entrepreneurial, did your parents put that in you? Was it a friendship? Like, where do you think that came from?
Yeah, that's a question that I get asked a lot, and I wish I could pinpoint it. I would say my parents have always encouraged me to pursue what I want. My parents, we grew up very comfortable, but didn't have a lot, and so I didn't want for anything ever, and I wouldn't want someone to think that. But I also, if I did want something, my parents made me go figure out how to earn it, whether that was mowing
Wow.
lawns, washing bikes, cars, selling lemonade. Starting different business ventures. Thankfully, the police were never called on them as a kid. That would have been a traumatic experience that I would definitely need to. I would probably have some serious stage fright then and other issues. But that was always part of who I was. I remember I worked really hard to get a PlayStation. It was like $199, and I used like
Mm.
$50 of gift cards from. That was when you got $5 and $10 gift cards for your birthday back before inflation.
Yep.
I used those gift cards and everything I had earned selling lemonade a quarter at a time or a dollar at a time, and it sat there and I never played it. And I think that was a really valuable lesson to me on just the
Wow.
importance of what's important in life. And I loved the work. I love working. It's not really work for me. And I love what I
Mm.
do because I love to inspire others towards a positive change.
So, most important, are you more of a White Sox fan or a Cubs fan?
Definitely a Cubs fan,
Okay.
though I can't say I follow them as much now as I once did.
Yeah, move out of the state and all that kind of stuff. I think probably even a bigger. Are you more of a Giordano's or a Lou Malnati's pizza guy?
Oh, that's really controversial. I'm Giordano's through and through. I
Okay.
have it shipped occasionally here, frozen, so I can warm one up. And I did speak in Chicago at a conference once just for a day. And fun fact, TSA does allow you to carry on a fresh Giordano's pizza on
Get
your
out.
carry-on baggage.
That's amazing. It is interesting. More and more pop it up. There's one in Orlando down by us,
I've been to
and
that one as
so
well.
we actually just
Yep.
a what's the other Chicago? Portillo's just opened up not too far in Tampa here, so we were excited.
Okay.
A
Yeah,
little,
there's a Portillo's in Orlando as well. Not
yeah,
too far from that Giordano's, probably about a mile and a half.
little
When we go to
taste.
Disney as a family, we definitely hit those up.
So I'm always I this is probably one of my favorite interviews because I love talking with someone who has been on stages hundreds and hundreds of times, and it's always fascinating to hear their story. Really, what kind of captivated your attention to want to get on a stage? Did that first one? Did you just enjoy it so much that it started to snowball? Where do you think kind of that came from? Take us to that Genesis story.
Yeah, I've loved everything from the theater to the stage to production, and high production value. I even have my own events, and there everyone says, "Wow, the production value is just so much, higher than other meetings," and that's just something that I've always been passionate about. And I was in musicals, I was in plays, I did the tech and AV both at our church and in school, so that was always a big part of it. But I'll never forget in second grade, um, my teacher asked, "What do you want to be when you grew up?" And I drew, it was a stick figure at best. I drew the stick figure and it had a lapel mic on. This was before the Countrymen's and headset mics and, Britney Spears and all of that. But so somewhere in me, I wanted to be a CEO, a politician, a pastor, a newscaster. I don't know what it was, but that was something, from 8-ish years old on has
Wow.
always been a part of what I've wanted to do. And then it was really about 2008, 2009 where I went to a leadership conference, and it was the first time I'd ever kind of sat down and wrote out my own purpose statement for my life, and it was to inspire others towards a positive change.
Wow.
And I saw these speakers, people who I had read their books, and I was like, wow, they're impacting hundreds or thousands or hundreds of thousands of people with their words, and words are powerful. And I think it was from that point I saw that I love creating products and services that make a difference. But really, if I can get in a room with leaders, with entrepreneurs, with business owners, managers, executives, and just inspire them, and help them get usually unstuck and move through that resistance, whether that's getting arrested for a lemonade stand or whatever that might be. That's really where I find that I'm most passionate. And when I kind of exited the VC world several years ago, I said, you know what, I'm going to spend my time investing in speaking and writing.
Wow. Wow. Oh, I love that story. It's so fascinating. I find myself in a lot of rooms with financial advisors, licensed bankers, insurance agents, people in the client communication industries, and you're so right about the production level. Sometimes it's just like, okay, like, can we can we just pretend like there's something going on here? Let's raise the level.
Yeah. Yes.
I love that. I love that. Okay, so let's jump into your book because the moment that I first saw it, I was like, oh my goodness, this is it. And I knew, especially as I read the description, you kind of do the turn it over test and you're able to read the back cover and you could kind of get a feel, pretty quickly. Okay, is this? And I knew, especially the rooms that I'm in speaking, especially people listening to this podcast, this is going to be one of those books that add immediate value and immediately practicality because they can take it and run with it. So tell us about your book and, kind of jump into what inspired that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the book is called Speak Goodr. I've got it here, and it's supposed to be a little bit playful. And there's a lot of reasons why it's supposed to be playful. One, it was a personal challenge for me. Integrating humor into my talks has always been a challenge, and so I really wanted to challenge myself to write something humorous and slapstick. If you read any of my other books, like Cracking the Millennial Code, it's much more academic, still easy to read and practical and relatable. But there's a big difference between academic writing and writing for pleasure, effectively. So this is nonfiction. It is true. but the stories and the way it's written is just really slapstick. Someone likened it to Three Stooges, and so it's just a really fun read. But really, what it does, as I'm nearing 1,000 live presentations on stage, I wanted to capture all of those ridiculous, wild moments, the ones that no one talks about. There's tons of great books out there on how to be a professional speaker, how to get paid to speak, how
Yep.
the skills of public speaking, and I love all of those books. But what I wanted to do is say, hey, here's something ridiculous that happened. You probably aren't going to believe me that it happened. Here's what I learned from it, and here's how you can apply it. And I'm going to make it bite size. And if your listeners are looking, I mean, there's even cartoons inside the book. And so it's my cartoon. It's called the Gooder Guy, for Speak Goodr, and it's just this idea of, hey, life's going to throw you curveballs when you're on the stage or when you're speaking in front of a room. It's going to throw you curveballs. So I picked 40, and there's more, but I picked 40 of the wackiest and wildest adventures that have practical learning lessons, and stuck them in here for people to hopefully laugh, enjoy, and hopefully learn and be inspired as well.
Wow. Wow. I love it. Okay. So a couple things going off. So one, did you say 1,000 presentations earlier?
I'm nearing 1,000 live presentations
Oh
on
my
stage
goodness.
presentations. That does not include virtual.
Come on. Wow. So you took the Malcolm Gladwell, 10,000 hour, super serious, try to translate that down into, being on stage.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, his 10,000 hours. I mean, it's true. The more you do it, and I think one of the things that I realized even in writing the book, because sometimes, when you sit down and reflect on what you've learned and you try to put it into terms that you can present to someone else, that's where you
Yep.
learn the most, right?
Oof.
Because you have to actually think about it. And so as I was sitting down, a lot of it, especially some of the ones, I don't really give many chronological. It's not very chronological except for the first two stories in here. Everything else I've just mixed up, um, for different reasons, just to make it easier to read. But as internally, I knew the stories that happened more recently. I'm like, you know what? The way I react to that is so different than I would have reacted to that 10 or 12 years ago. Had
Oh,
the AV guy come and started to dance on stage, and there's a story about an AV disco in here, and he panicked, and so he got really really awkward. And there's all sorts of stories, and that was very very recently, and that I was able to laugh at. But had that happened when I first started, I would have shut down. I would have
yep.
been in a corner, sucking my thumb, rocking back and
Yep.
forth.
Yep. I hear you. So, my brain's a little bit of a systems brain. And so, if you're an Enneagram person at all, I'm a 4. So, wildly creative, all this stuff going on. But for some reason, I got this little, I think you even said in your email, thanks for the thorough notes. I like to send out our content,
Yeah, super
for these
thorough.
kind of things, kind of have a plan. But so my brain's immediately going, okay, do you have some type of system then as a speaker that you're capturing, that AV disco guy moment and you're writing it down on a spreadsheet? Are you, is there follow up that you're doing immediately and writing down those notes after those speaking engagements? So, you have that wealth of material, or was it just I'm going to try to remember everything that happened?
Um, my son and I were shopping the other day, at the grocery store, and he's like, "I know." He's only 5. He's like, "I know why you brought me, Daddy." And I said, "Why?" He's like, "'Cause you don't remember anything, and I remember everything." So all that to say, I don't remember very many things. So for the stories in here, there's some level of trauma probably associated with them that I'm able to regurgitate them. They're outlandish, and I've had multiple people say, "Are you sure these are accurate?" And I've said some of them are toned down, and some details are changed to protect, as the intro of the book says, the not so innocent. But again, meeting planning's hard, so you don't want to throw any meeting planner under the bus.
That's right.
But a lot of these stories are kind of the wackiest, craziest ones. That said, from a professional speaking standpoint, which probably not all is not relevant to all of your listeners, but to those who make a career of professional speaking, I absolutely have notes on every single event,
Mm.
on who I met, what I experienced, in case I get invited back. But that is unfortunately not the notes that were used to fuel this book. These were I've been working on it for a couple years, not
Yep.
writing it for a couple years, but jotting down, knowing that this was coming down the line. And so finally, once I had a solid 40 stories, I was like, that's enough to make anyone not want to be a professional speaker.
I love it. So did you find someone who did all of the illustrations, cartoons, or is that a hidden talent of yours?
Definitely not a hidden talent of mine. I actually, I haven't told anyone this yet, and it's not even inside the book. I opted for it not to be inside the book. I did design the cover. Um, you have to
Awesome.
say you like it now.
I love
Um,
it.
but thank you, thank you. Um, so that was really, my first real business. I know I glossed over that, but after the lemonade stand, I was in Chicago, called the Chicago Tribune as an 8, 9 year old, and asked if I could market my lemonade stand with a full page, full color back page ad on. And when they picked up the phone, they said yes, ma'am, because I was 8 or 9. And entrepreneurs don't take no for an answer. And so I
Mm.
just used all my parents, HP inkjet printer ink to print my own newspaper. I tell you that story only because I do like design. I am creative. And so my first company actually was a design agency. That newspaper ended up on a local business owner's desk, and he had no idea that my at Juno email address went to like at that point 10 or 11 year old. So I emailed
Wow.
back and forth with him in the early days of the dial-up internet, and the at Juno. You got those CD-ROMs from Walmart or wherever you went shopping, and I built a business out of that. And part of that was right place, right time, but a lot of sweat equity too. And I haven't really designed in many, many years. I have a design team that I still employ regularly, who did the illustrations and the layout and all of that inside the book. But I did not like the covers that they presented, so I went through and I said, "Hey, this is what I want it to look like." And as I was
Mm.
designing, I'm like, "I'm going all in. I'm downloading Photoshop again for the first time and Illustrator, and I'm going for it." So, yeah, I that is a little secret. So normally it says who did the cover on the inside of the book, and I asked that not to be included in the copyright page.
Wow. Interesting. All right, here it is on the Speak of People podcast. We're getting
There's your
scoop.
exclusive right there.
There it is. I love it. Okay, so you mentioned read in other places 75%, up to 75% of adults. I mean, just the fear of public speaking cripples them. What's some practical advice that you could give right now to our leaders listening, going, I know that if I do step into more public speaking opportunities, typically, like Jeff Henderson says, the microphone follows public speaking. Or I'm sorry. Oh, I just really messed that up. Leadership follows the microphone. So if I start using the
There you go.
microphone more often, more leadership opportunities are going to come. So walk us through why it's a good thing, why we should step into it, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think one of the questions I get asked a lot is, do I get nervous when I get up to present? And 9 times out of 10, I would say no, not anymore. I mean, I'm comfortable with my content. I'm comfortable on stage. And just about, I better knock on some wood, otherwise we're gonna have the sequel here, Speak Goodest or something, Gooder. But most anything crazy that can happen, from natural disasters to AV issues, has all happened. So that part doesn't make me worried anymore. But what really gets me worked up when I think about, hey, why am I nervous? It's when I lose sight of why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Ooh.
And I think that's the most important thing, is who is it that you're speaking to? And people are like, oh, you do motivational keynotes, you're in front of, X number of people, that's different. And I said, no. When I was raising money for my startups, and you're in a small boardroom with one VC or 5 VCs or whomever it might be, and you're pitching and you're asking for money, you're hoping that they'll change your life, right? By investing. But at the same time, your message has to land the same exact way. You have to communicate effectively why you're influencing positive change and how that collaboration can happen. Same with a boardroom. If you're trying to present a project to a client, if you're presenting a financial plan to one of your clients, each time you're doing that, you should know why you're presenting. I mean, even before we hopped on here, it's I asked this question to any meeting planner, any podcast. What do you want your listeners, your audience, your viewers to walk away learning, doing, acting, or saying as a result of the time that we've spent together?
Yep.
And I think that's what's really important for anyone, regardless of who you're speaking to, whether it's a high school project or you're trying to close a multi-billion-dollar deal. What is the desired outcome? And I think that is your goal. You're not talking to people anymore. You're trying to get people to join with you.
Wow. Wow. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you just you hit it so on the dot there. When we lose sight of uh, what matters, what problem we're solving for the audience, and we keep it on ourselves, that's where we can struggle. Talk to us about, how do we then, as speakers, whether it's in front of a room, a boardroom, on a stage, how do we come across like it's just us? Like there's this authentic connection. Because sometimes you see speakers get on the stage and it's like, oh wow, I wonder if they talk like that in real life, or if that's like them on the stage. How do you like, how are you, Ryan, on the stage, off the stage, that kind of authentic connection?
Yeah, for me, authenticity is huge. And there's this the professional speaking world is definitely divided on what I'm about to say. So I'll share my personal perspective. Um, but I'm all about having one-on-one conversations with every single person in the audience, right? You want to make sure that you connect with every single person individually in the audience, and you're not going to win 100% of the time, and that's just part of the deal, especially when you have larger audiences. But the single best feedback that has ever stuck with me was a meeting. I might have had 50 or 75 managers in it. We were in a Maggiano's, one of the back rooms there, and I was speaking, and nothing fancy. The thing that people that want to be professional speakers don't even know is the majority of what you do, right? Yes, there's the big keynote stages, but most of them are like back rooms at restaurants.
Yep.
Not most, but some. And this lady who's been in my audiences before, she came up to me and she said, "Hey, I've heard you speak. This is my third time hearing you speak, or however many." And she's like, "I finally understand why I like listening to you.
Oh.
It's because you invite everyone into your living room and you talk to them like they're your friends."
Mm,
And that is, to this day, one of the biggest compliments that I have ever received, because it also taught me a lot.
yeah.
I've been in speaking competitions and all the other things that professional speakers are supposed to do, and one of the critiques I get a lot is you're too casual or you're too informal. And I do lack a sense of polish. Part of that's intentionally, because I want people to be able to relate to me. I don't want to say, "Hey, I've done this, that," and there's a I give an example in the book, and I may or may not have changed some of the job titles that he had to protect the not so innocent again. But basically, I say, hey, it's in the last section of the book. There's sharks in the speaking pool, and basically the idea is I sat in this room and I had to follow this guy who had every credential under the sun. Like, he walked on the moon, didn't actually do that, but I say that he walked on the moon, he did all these things, and everyone on pay like he's the one that you'd want to sign up to go hear. But then when you started hearing him, he was extremely polished, he was choreographed, he was scripted, and all he talked about was me, 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 me. And he got terrible reviews, which made me look great afterwards. So I think
Mm,
that's just one of the really interesting things that I feel is important, is that authenticity. You have to be professional. There's a difference between having a little. I'm a matte finish, right? I'm not glossy, so I just have that light polish, not like super shiny. But I still have a finish on me. I've definitely
yep.
seen speakers that have no polish whatsoever, and that's a whole different conversation that
Yeah.
is not what we're talking about today.
Wow. Yeah, I was in Orlando right before Christmas at an event, and I was following a speaker, same situation that you just talked about. And it was such a great learning experience because literally the first 10 minutes was about him and his stories and his success and I get sometimes we're pressured to want to wow over the audience. You should listen to me because I sold 20 million, or I did
Yeah.
these things. But I just found time and time again, you could wow over the audience by providing an actual solution to what they're struggling with and doing it in a way that they feel like, oh wow, I can trust this person. So
Yeah, exactly.
walk us through, because I'm so fascinated just with some of the practice management. So you're going to an event, and you're you're so right. I was in Minnesota last week in the side restaurant type deal, and um, sometimes my friends think all the speaking gigs are on stages with lights and all that kind of stuff, and I'm like, nope, just a
Yep.
side room. So
No.
whether it's a side room, it's a big room. Walk us through. Do you have like a pre-ritual? Do you have a pre-game? How early do you get? How many people do you try to talk to beforehand? Would love to know any of that you'd share with us.
Yeah, I think I don't really have a pregame ritual at this point, which is really interesting. I know a lot of speakers do. What's interesting to me, and I share the story of George Bush in the book on 9/11. I don't know if you remember the image of him reading. to all the kids, and all of a sudden one of his aides or Secret Service whispers in his ear what had just happened with the Twin Towers, and he barely has a startled look on his face, finishes the book, closes it, and then the rest of the world changed. And I often say a lot of my speaking career was born in a unique way. I didn't start off as a professional speaker. I was running, software companies or whatever it was. And so I would go have to deal with whatever was going on over there and then go run up on stage. And so for me, it was almost a part of my job. And now it is basically the majority of my job. So I say all of that to say I don't really have a pre-talk ritual that I do. If it's a brand new talk or keynote, I will definitely I write it out word for word, which I know is a big no-no. But that's how I do it. And then I don't memorize it. I do disagree. I do agree with the experts that say memorizing it is bad, but I do write it out verbatim because I find that my writing is often a little bit more interesting than just talking back and forth. And then I chunk that down. And so I know all of these different parts. They're called, I call them modules. I borrowed that from Mark Sanborn, who's a really well-known speaker. One of his speaking courses says, hey, you've got to chunk all these things so that if, your event just went from 1 hour to 25 minutes, which has happened to me, you've got to be able to know how to pull things out and not lose your message, or vice
Yep.
versa. I talk about a story here. The cornfield curveball in the book, where I was supposed to do one course and they had me slated for an entire day. And I was the only speaker. They had all of these people that had driven from rural America to this place. They had spent the night in a hotel just to hear me. And so, I just pulled these things in and made it longer.
Yep.
And I was able to pull another talk I had done too. So all that to say, I don't have a pre-ritual. I do a lot of I just said do as a speaker. You're not supposed to do that. But I have a lot of uh, research that I do, especially if it's a new industry. So my talks don't really change. Like when I'm doing Crack Millennial Code, which is one of my more well-known talks that I've done for you name the industry or the level of position, in a company, I've probably shared it with that group. I don't have to do research on the topic. I've done years of research on it, but I do have to do research how that connects with the audience. And I think, again, that's the most important thing is what do I want my members to walk away listening, feeling, hearing, doing, or saying? And so I will go in and, I've done everything from, environmental services to horticulture to dental to corporate executives to banking to find like all these things with the same exact topic to pet supplies, you name it. I've done all these things. And so how do I spay and neuter clinics? Like, how do you take this message and make sure it resonates effectively with the audience? So I do a lot of research to make sure that I don't just do boilerplate presentation.
Wow. Okay. Again, you keep talking, and then I have 50 questions for 4 different segments. So you said something about writing out word for word. Yes, I do that as well. I think it's just I think it's a great preparation piece too, because you're like, okay, I want to know my material. I love that.
Yep.
So you do something a little unique. It sounds like I hear a lot in the speaker world. Find your niche, niche down, go after that one. But it sounds like you kind of have this is what I provide. And then, your target audience is somewhat different because you're talking to pharmaceuticals or this or that. So do you guys spend time, maybe not at this level, but at one point prospecting to each of those groups, or, is there one that had more preference or the other?
Yeah, I totally prospect a ton. There's a chapter in here that says you're not Oprah, and it talks specifically about the fact that one of my biggest pet peeves from anyone that's trying to be a professional speaker, set aside public speaking for a second, but someone who was trying to make a career out of it, that basically says, I'm not getting booked and paid to speak. How do you do 60, 70, 80 times a year? Well, I put a lot of work for every one that I get. I'm hitting 30 to 40 prospects to get that. Now, I also have a book of business I built over the years, of course.
Yep.
But I'm still out there, or my team's out there hustling. It doesn't fall in my lap. And so, and you have to pick who you want. So when I do niche down from the type of person I'm looking for, business owners, executives, people in position of leadership, or salespeople, which often have that same type of kind of persona. So I would say that's my niche. And for a while, I would concentrate on very specific niches within healthcare, or even regional, regional, local, and national level chapters of an organization. And that's a great way if you want to get into an organization, regardless of your industry, and you're getting started. That's a great way to start out in a niche. But I do think you have to master something before you can expand beyond, one core niche.
Ooh, boy, just gold. Incredible. So you also talk about kind of turning some of these speaking mishaps into mic dropping moments. Was there, you know, is there a good one you could share? Is there, some advice, to give our, because things are going to happen, right? The projector is going to go out. The mic's going to turn off, whatever it is. Would love your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think one of the things as a speaker, you have to again know your audience, and you have to know when you call attention to something that's going on, and when you call attention to something, or when you choose not to call attention to something. So I'll give you an example of both. One that did not make the book. So here's a outtake, if you will. I was giving a presentation at a university, and this was very, very, very early on in my speaking, and when I frequently got nervous. And we all have different ways that nerves manifest themselves. And so I'm up there presenting my heart out, and I'm feeling my legs get a little wobbly, and I'm kind of nervous. And at this point, I'm not learning to read the audience. I'm just trying to spew out whatever words I had
Yep.
pre-arranged and just get it out there. So I have no idea what the audience is reacting to what I'm saying, or what's going on around me. I sat down. The meeting planner, because there were speakers back to back, the meeting planner leans over. She's like, "Did you feel that?" I'm like, "What?" She's like, "There was a little earthquake while you were speaking." Um, so I didn't call attention to that one because I thought I was nervous, and it was very minor, like barely detectable. So that's one funny one that didn't make the book.
Wow.
But then I already mentioned the Disco AV one, so let's go with that one, because that one, I think it was talk like number 700 something. So well into my number of talks, maybe even close to the 800 mark. And I go there, and I'm walking in, and I'm speaking in the middle of, this is an industry convention, and they have their stage set up in a trade show hall, which is not abnormal. I've done that before, classrooms on the trade show floor. Um, but this one was different. So when people walked in, they got headphones and they got a pack, and everyone was listening, because the trade show floor was so noisy, to me speak in their headphones. It was like, I've spoken overseas before, and sometimes when you have your presentation translated, people will get headphones and packs. It was the same type of thing. So I get up there. There's a little monitor on the stage, so I can hear myself through the microphone. I can hear if I'm playing audio through my computer through that little monitor, but all of them are wearing headphones. So I'm like, I don't know if they're listening to like Taylor Swift's new album that dropped that morning, or what they're listening to. And so it really created this unique thing. So that's going on while all of a sudden the lights start to flash, my screen starts to do all sorts of crazy things, and the AV guy is literally up on stage with me, and he's like trying to move around me, which makes no sense because there's no technology around me except for the microphone on my face. And so like we're literally doing this dance as I'm speaking. In that case, I turned it into the best comedy routine that I could, and I started just making jokes of it, and I was giving my millennial course. And so I made a joke about Walkman and said all the millennials would know about that, and basically trying to layer in and connect it to my course. I do have a very self-deprecating type of humor as well, which is something that this book was trying to break me out of. So there was a lot of things in there that it was just unique. And after the meeting
Wow.
professional, she said she's been doing this like 25 or 30 years. She said no one has ever had that many issues, got through their message, and still made a positive impact. And my reviews from that were through the roof, because we had a shared experience. And if you think about that, if you've ever been
Mm.
stuck in an elevator with someone, or had a crazy airplane experience where you had to emergency land, like all of a sudden, all those people have a shared experience. And so, as a professional speaker, you've got to invite people into that. It's like the dog always goes to the person in the room who does not want to pet the dog, just how it works.
Yep.
Your audience knows too. And so you've got to set the tone for your audience to follow you. And if you say, "Hey, we're gonna have fun, we're gonna move through this," it usually works out all right.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Boy, that's so good, especially in the moment. It's just crazy. Uh, so often, many of the nerves can be dealt with. I found through preparation. You know, how walk us through how you prepare, how, as you're getting your message together, you know, all of those different kind of things.
Yeah, I say for every 1 minute I'm on stage, I do about an hour minimum of preparation and
Wow.
research. And so, if you've ever been to one of my talks, you know that I have a lot of interesting illustrations that are thoroughly researched and vetted. Because you know how many illustrations float around in the speaker world that are not true? A lot, and they're portrayed as gospel truth. So I do a lot of research there. I do a lot of research to make sure that what the content I'm delivering is unique. One of
Mhm.
the things that the way I speak often is I take people from the beginning and build up to where they're going, which is different than a lot of speakers, and it's just my style, right? I'm not saying it's the right way. It's just that's what makes one of the things that makes me unique. And so I spend a lot of time getting the background information and trying to distill it as simple as an eighth grader could understand. Why do I think my audience is only an eighth grade level? No, but when you take complex ideas and you try to distill it down to something you can have a conversation with a 12, 13, or 14-year-old, it really challenges you to make an effective message that's poignant.
Wow.
And so it's not trying to undermine my audience's intelligence, because I've spoken to conferences that everyone's a PhD, and I have no liberty speaking to them, but they all appreciate the way I communicate because it's adult communication, but I take these complex ideas and try to distill it. So most of my prep goes into that. And then obviously, building and rehearsing the content and delivery. And I do a lot of after the fact prep too, or kind of like postmortems. I record every single thing that I do.
Mm.
Sometimes it's just audio, but I record every single talk that I do, mainly to make sure I didn't say anything stupid. So if the insurance company ever comes knocking, I can be like, nope, didn't say it. But no, the reality is, like, in the moment, especially as you get more comfortable, sometimes some of my most brilliant things happen on the spot, because I had a conversation right before, or during a break, or heard someone right before me. I want to be able to capture that and rework that. Then sometimes you say stupid stuff, or you get tripped up on stuff, or that joke didn't land right, and you want to replay. And was that your timing? Was that the audience? What was it? So all of that is super important. So I do record everything and do a lot of a lot of analyzation. I make up words too a lot. That's one of my hobbies. But I analyze a lot after the fact, and make sure that my message landed effectively.
Oh, absolutely. Boy, that's so good. I mean, at least just thinking it through on the front end, on the back end, instead of just walking in and hoping for the best. It's just so huge. So as we kind of turn the corner, finish the conversation, for the business marketplace leader listening to this, and our audience who's going to go back to their their office, or they're working from home, and they know they have a presentation coming up, you know and they want it to be okay. I want it to stand out. I want people in the room to remember it. Give us one or two things just to remember as we're preparing that, so we can kind of have that standout experience.
Yeah, I think the one thing from a delivery standpoint, set aside content for a second, but delivery is, you're the only one that knows where you're going. And so if you make a wrong turn, don't let people know. Just keep
Wow.
going. And remember where you're going. Remember where that finish line is, because one of the worst things is you have a killer presentation, and the plane circles the runway, and you run out of gas, and you just kind of fall out of the sky. And that happens so often. So know where you're going and know how you're going to finish strong. And that can be with a product pitch, that can be with an investor pitch, that can be even a quarterly board review, whatever it might be. Just know where you're taking them. I think that's the important part. And if you make a wrong turn, just keep going. So the second piece, more on the content standpoint, is uh, people think in images, right? People think in
Mm.
concrete things that they can attach themselves to. And there's that old, I think it's a Geico commercial. It's this motivational speaker. He's like, imagine, picture yourself, and just all these terms that you'd expect a keynote or motivational speaker to do. And while I think that's over the top, there is there's some imagery. Even when we started talking, you said, "Hey, what'd you do?" I didn't just say I had a lemonade stand. I actually said, "Hey, every Saturday morning I rolled my card table down to the end of the sidewalk." And you know, now someone can relate with that. It's those little simple things that you just pepper in, that now you're all of a sudden seeing a little kid roll, or you're remembering your own journey rolling that down. But if I said I had a lemonade stand, everyone's like, "Yeah, I had a lemonade stand too." So just little
Wow.
things like that to connect and have that concrete imagery. And you don't have to have like 12 pages of, John Grisham or another great novelist who describes the smell for 12 pages before he actually gets to what the point is. That's great in a novel, but when you're talking, you don't have that much time.
Wow.
So, make those little concrete connections all the way through.
Wow. Powerful. Just gold. Before I let you
Thank you.
go, we ask every guest some rapid fire questions. We're building this online database for leaders to go be inspired, find new resources. And so, as a professional speaker, is there a professional speaker that every time you hear them, you just think, wow, I always learn something. Can't wait to recommend them. Got to tell other people about them.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a part of National Speakers Association, have been since I was a student member. And I would say this, I would say if no matter what you're doing in life, and this is sort of how I end the book too, you need to live in community, right? You need to live in community with people that are trying to do the same thing that you're doing. You need someone that's gone a couple steps ahead of you that you can follow. You need someone that's a running mate that can hold your hand when you fall down. And you need someone a couple steps behind you that you can start explaining what you've done, so you're learning and internalizing your experiences as you're sharing with the person behind you. So for me, it's NSA and Speaking Consulting Network, which is specifically a healthcare version, more or less, of NSA. So those two for me are huge. And I'm always involved in community for different interests. And I think everyone should be involved in some sort of community.
I love that. Is there if you're a podcast listener, is there a podcast, either guilty pleasure or development, that you just, every time you listen to it, you're like, oh, another great episode. I got to share this with somebody.
Yeah, there's this great podcast called Speak with People. I think everybody should be listening to.
Well, thank you.
I have to confess, I'm not a huge podcast listener. People
Yep.
send me podcasts all the time, and I think you can listen and learn from all of them. But I'm a topical guy, so I hop like, hey, if I find something interesting, I'll absolutely listen to it. But I'm not a huge like run through the season kind of guy. So,
Yeah,
if it's the TV show Friends or Office, sure, I'll go through the whole season. But other than that, I cherry pick, even with books, I cherry pick the chapters that might be most relevant.
I love it. Well, on that note, then, is there a book that you recommend for every leader? You should definitely read this book.
Yeah, I will share my first leadership book ever that got me started on this journey was The Fred Factor by Mark Sanborn. And really love that book. I think there's a second version of it out. It's just on how to turn, delivering mail into something, that's memorable. So I love that one. As far as recent books, I absolutely love, I own a couple coffee shops and wine bars now as a hobby, and absolutely love Will Garda's Unreasonable Hospitality. It's been on the New York Times bestseller list for probably a year straight. Don't quote me on that, but it's been on there for a very, very long time. And that book takes you a little bit behind the restaurant scene, but really in business, regardless of whether you're serving thousands or one, it's how do you create that extraordinary experience, which has always been a big ethos of mine. And he just encapsulates that in such a powerful way. So that, as far as books in the last year, that one is top of my
Wow,
list.
absolutely. Our producer who edit this podcast and all that is a coffee. He just absolutely loves all things coffee. So fascinating to hear about your coffee venture.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a interesting business to be in.
I love it. Where can our listeners go to find you, find out more about you, get your book, all of those kind of things?
Yeah, I'm probably too easy to find online. It's ryanvet.com or ryanvet on any social platform that you're on. Speak Goodr has its own website, and that's just Speak Goodr, Goodr, R for Ryan.com. Or now you can even go to the USA Today bestseller list, because as of today, this is the first podcast
Get out.
interview. Speak Goodr is on the USA Today bestseller list. So it should be easy to find anywhere that books are sold, online or in retail stores.
Well, congratulations for being on the list. I know that it's well deserved, and I can't wait for our listeners to pick up the copy of your book. Ryan, I can't thank you enough. I mean, your time, you're so gracious. You are absolutely brilliant. Thanks for opening up your vault and just sharing. And I know that this has been, great opportunity for our listeners. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I've enjoyed the conversation.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Speak with People podcast. It means the world to us when you share this episode. Thanks for liking, subscribing, or following the podcast. That really does help the podcast get into into more ears and into more leaders listening. Also, don't forget, we have 2 exciting resources for you. The first is go to Facebook and join the Speakers Group. This is a community designed for leaders who want to grow their communication skills. Also, go to speakwithpeople.com/skills library to access the Communication Skills Library. It is an online resource chock filled with resources that will inspire you and transform you and grow your communication skills. Thanks again for being a part of the listening community. We cannot wait for the next episode.